Welcome back to Serendipity Intended. My name is Tracy Ann, and I'm so glad that you are here. It is time for another day in Junk Journal January 2026. So let me get out my Hobonichi Techo, which is what I'm using for this challenge and really for my daily journaling all year. And let's take a look at the prompt list. So today is day 9, and that is threaded. And if I were doing something in a regular junk journal, I'd probably be using all kinds of fabrics and threads, but I really am trying to keep things fairly smooth. And so I'm not going to go that route. What I did do was find a couple of images from a magazine that had threads or a needle and thread in them. And so I thought I could use those images to create my page. I also wanted the edges of these papers to be sort of rough, not really thready or showing threads, but maybe as though they were showing threads. I love this ruler for that purpose because it gives it a nice torn edge, but it also gives me quite a bit of control. Now that edge was pretty short, and I was okay with it being a little bit irregular. And I'm going to save that bit. It might be useful for something. If not on this page, then another. I really like the way that that works on the page. So the next thing I need to do is just cut out this image. I decided when I cut it not to cut it right up against the edge. One, because I thought that would make those threads just entirely too difficult to deal with, but also because I did want a little bit of that green in the background to remain, just to help it pop, or the image pop against my page. So then I just kind of cut around all of the pieces. I did get this first little bit of the ends of the thread cut off, and then I decided it would be easier to do the center while I still had the outside paper to hold on to. So that's why I kind of hacked into the middle there. You notice that I made a couple of cuts from the center out to the edges, and that's really so that as I'm cutting out the middle of this paper, there's a little bit less resistance from the paper itself. It just makes it a little bit easier to navigate as I do that sort of inside of the shape cutting. So with that taken out, then I can go back and finish cutting the rest of the way around my thread. I was really starting to get excited at this point as I started to see that the image was going to look even more cool cut out than I anticipated. So I was super, super, super excited about that. And the needle is absolutely the perfect size. It really becomes a focal image on the page, even though it's pretty simple just because of how large it is, but it's not so big that it doesn't fit. I decided to take a little strip of the green from that same picture and put it in the background. Again, just to help, it's more threads in the texture of that fabric from the background, but also just to add a little bit more of that green to the page. And for just a teeny bit more interest, I decided to throw in a little bit of that book page as well. I had grabbed that bird just thinking maybe I would use him because I liked the colors with the magazine images that I wanted to use, but decided to glue the background down first. Now you see here I'm using a tape runner. Normally I use either glue stick or art glitter glue, but I'm finding with the pages in my Hobonichi that they are a little too moist and I'm getting some wrinkling and it's causing problems on the flip side. And so I decided to try using the tape runner, which is a little bit drier of a glue, to see whether or not that worked a bit better for the particular paper that is in this journal. So I was super pleased with just the little bit that that book page added, and the fact that the flip side was nice and smooth for me for tomorrow's prompt. I'm rounding this off because I want to place the needle so that it looks like it's going into the threads of that embroidery background image, just to kind of create the illusion that they're one and the same. Now, because the threads are going to sit directly onto the background page, I'm using that same tape runner for that portion of the needle and thread, but I'm using my art glitter glue for the needle itself because it's going to be glued onto that magazine page background, and I don't think I'll have the same issue with wrinkling. So then, just a little bit to get it positioned. I grabbed the micron just to give a little bit of a hint of an indentation to reinforce the idea that it's going into the page. Now, because this is my daily journal, I did need to go back in and add the date. It is the 9th, and it's Friday. I covered over it from the original page, so I just went ahead and drew that back in. And then I'm using a black and a olive green colored pencil to color those blocks in so that they match the color scheme that I've got going on in the page. And it's also consistent with how I've been doing the date portion of the page on each of the other pages. And even though this looks like a yellow, if I do it really lightly, it calls out some of the yellow tones that are in the book page and make them sort of make sense. I went back over the green with the black to try and create a little bit of the texture like there was in the background. I thought it would be fun to add this washi tape to the lower left-hand corner. The green works really well with the green in the background, as does the white with the white fabric, and also the white of the journal page itself. So I thought that added a nice little bit of interest there. So I'm liking this, but it still felt just a little bit flat. I found this from a digital kit. I really like the colors, but not the text on it. So I decided to hole punch it out and then cover the text. It was too small for me to hold on to and get into my punch. So I glued it onto a piece of paper. So I had something to hold on to and maneuver it with. And you can see there, it makes it a whole lot easier to I have such a tough time with this punch. A whole lot easier to maneuver it to where I wanted it. And then I just remove the extra paper and maybe save that circle for another project. So I am absolutely loving that. I love the beige of the background where the words are, and I super love the border. I think it looks so pretty with the embroidery in that background image. And I'm going to use the exact same magazine page to get a smaller circle that I can use to glue down and cover up the words, and then ultimately glue down that little shape. I hope that you are finding ways to challenge and stretch yourself this Junk Journal January. I know I am, and I'm having so much fun with it. So that definitely was the right amount of something to add to that corner. I'm using this charcoal pencil just to add a tiny bit of shading to the needle, just to try and give it a little bit more of a three-dimensional look. Not an artist, so those of you that are, please don't be too critical of where I'm applying the shading, because I know that it's in the wrong place and that my shadows are coming from different directions. But it is what it is. I'm pretty pleased with how it turned out regardless. And anyway, that is my page. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did creating it, and I look forward to seeing you next time. And until then, I hope that you make an absolutely great day.